Well, welcome everybody. I'm so glad today is finally here and to see all of you. It has been quite a year or two of planning. I am Holly Snyder, the Outreach Committee Chair with the Society. Welcome to the Goleta Cemetery District and the Santa Barbara County Genealogical Society's 5th Picnic in the Cemetery event. Today we will meet 6 cemetery residents, but we're gonna hear a little bit about the cemetery first. I thought it was really interesting and I thought you would like it too. So where is Rick?
Today you're going to meet 7 cemetery residents. I live here. Why is it Holly and I are the only ones that don't have name tags? Okay. My name is Rick. Thank you for coming to our cemetery. Thank you. Beautiful day. I hope it rains though. Be nice. We can sure use it. Again, my name is Rick. I am honored to, for almost 17 years now, I wear a couple of hats for the cemetery. I am the administrator of the Goleta Cemetery District, which goes from El Cap to about Alomar, the ocean, to the National Forest. And we are a taxing authority, and so I administer that operation. I am also the general manager of the cemetery, where we're standing right now. And probably the most interesting hat I wear, I am the resident caretaker. I live here. My wife and I live here. House is right over there. So I keep an eye on things 24/7, and talk about historic, I may be the only one left that lives in a general manager that lives in the cemetery. I don't think I'm quite as extinct as lighthouse keepers, but almost. Anyway, Holly asked me to talk a little bit about the history, and it is going to be a little bit because I don't know a whole lot, to be honest with you. I have a tendency to spend my time doing historical things, updating individuals buried here. I like to do that. I like when I learn information about individuals, I like to update that and research that. But as far as the history of the grounds, I don't know a lot, but I will share with you what I do know. And usually if I'm talking to one person, I don't have to have notes, but I got 100 eyes looking at me, so I have notes. I tendency to forget things. When I came to work here, I was told there were burials here up on the hill here back to the 1850s. We have no record. By record, I mean a name and a location. We have no records that go back that far, but we do have some mention of some of our logbooks. The earliest recorded interment or burial here is again right up on that hill. Let me get my notes here. A 2-year-old boy, Harry Kimber. He was born in 1869. No, he was born in 1867 and he died in 1869. I've got a name and a location and a date. That's the first one that we have that information. So, back to the cemetery itself. Again, people were being buried on this hill as early as the 1850s. It wasn't a cemetery then. It was a piece of property owned by a Mr. William C. Marcy, and he is buried here. He had 3 acres, about 3.5 acres right up there. I don't know whether he was doing it. I don't know who was actually doing the burials, but it was owned by him. But let me get my notes here. In 1874, somebody, I don't know who, somebody started the wheels turning, and the Rafaela, I may be pronouncing that wrong, Cemetery Association was organized in early 1874. Mr. Marcy, donated the 3 acres to the Cemetery Association. I don't think it had any employees. I don't see of any record, but anyway, so from 1874 until early 1910. Now, early 1910, Mr. Elwood Cooper started the wheels turning to form an independent special district, an independent cemetery district. That was in early 1910, and he started a petition. I have a copy of that petition. It was signed by 153, all men, of course, men, him and 152 other, and it was submitted to the county for formation of an independent cemetery district. And reading over the old petition and the old documents, it was deemed to be a majority of the qualified electors. So in that district, in this section, 153 people, 153 men, was deemed a majority of the qualified electors, and the independent cemetery district was established on April 4th, 1910. It's the earliest, by far, of the 7 cemetery districts in Santa Barbara County. It's one of the earliest special districts of any special district in the county. And at that time, it was called the Goleta Public Cemetery District. The original board members were E.A. Hollister, A.M. Hole, and F.R. Simpson, all men, of course. In fact, all of the board members through all of the years since then have all been men, except now we have one female board member now, Claudia Chiden. She's still a board member here. Took a long time. So anyway, that was in 1910. Some point between now, a few years later, for some reason they changed the name to the Goleta Valley Cemetery District. I have no idea when that happened. I don't know how it happened, but it was changed. And then shortly after that, it was changed to the Goleta Cemetery District. That's where we are right now. And let me go through some of my notes here. And the cemetery, like I said, that was the original cemetery up there. Then it kind of expanded in little tiny pieces. It expanded that way, then it expanded that way, and then back in I think in the 80s when we bought that land from the county over there. All that land you see over there, that belongs to the cemetery. That was back in the 80s, I believe. We have currently, I have records of, as of last week, 11,186 burials here in the cemetery. We have pretty good records of all of those, although I'm always looking to improve on some of these older ones here. Kind of spotty records. Let me look through some of my notes here. One thing I like to mention, because I actually did research this, over there where our Veterans Monument is, over there by the flag, I always wonder, I don't know, you got to go over and see it. It's really a pretty monument dedicated to World War I and World War II local residents killed in action. I have no information on where that came from. I don't know where it came from. So I put that question out to some of the veterans groups, and I did get back. It was, the Veterans Monument was donated by Mr. John Troop. He's buried up over there, whose son was killed in World War II. And it was originally at the Goleta Union, the Goleta Union School building down on Hollister, and later the Goleta Community Center. But they, back in I think it was the 70s, they donated it to the cemetery, and it was moved from there, the Goleta school building, and it used to be right up there on the top of that hill. That's where the flag used to be and the monument used to be. And then when they bought that, when they expanded, then it was moved over there. So it used to be right up there on top of that hill. So I was glad to get some information on that. And let me see, told you about that. Okay. The district has expanded over the years. It was originally, I think that's why it was called the Raphael Cemetery Association. Originally, it was the same boundaries of the Raphael School District. I don't even know if that exists anymore. But it was the same boundaries, but it's expanded over the years, and it's not going to get any bigger. I think that's all I have for now. Do we have any questions? Almost afraid.
Can anybody be buried here, or do you have to be from the second district?
You have to be a resident of the Goleta Cemetery District or related. You can be related. You can live on the moon, and if you're related to somebody buried here, then you can be buried here. You have to pay more though, because see, the property owners in the district every year they pay money to the cemetery. That's why our fees are relatively low. So if you are related, if you have a connection, you can be. You have to just pay extra.
How many more can you handle, and is it expanding?
It's expanding around the corner. You can't really see it from here.
Baseball field?
It's on this side of the baseball field, all the way around. In that section, see, we have about 16 acres under grass. 16 under grass. There's room over there where we are burying people now, probably for another 30 or 40 years. Yeah, it's kind of at the rate we're doing now. We're burying more and more, we're doing more and more cremations now than casket. Some days the traditional casket burials may be a thing of the past.
And is there any way you can still get a monument, or does it have to be flat?
In the newer sections, it's got to be flat. If for some reason there's still families who own burial plots in these old sections here.
Yeah.
And if they use it, they can put one of these. It's all grandfathered in, but in our new, see if you look out over there, they're all flat.
I know.
Yeah.
My mother's over there. And is it just because of the lawn mowing is easier? Is that why you do it?
Maintenance and irrigation.
That's the only
It's,
reason.
it's the only reason. It's so much easier.
Thank you.
So much easier. Just says, and oh, you're welcome. And please, I put my manager's hat on. Be careful as you walk around. There's not a level piece of turf in this entire cemetery. So just be careful as you walk around. Thank you.
So now we're going to get ready to go see our cemetery residents. And there's just a few logistics to go over before you get into groups and head over. And also one thing, I got reminded that if you're interested in knowing who is here in the cemetery, the Genealogical Society does have a listing of the cemetery on their website in their digital collections. And it's pretty long index.
Here lies William and Anne Hendry.
My name is William Nicole Hendry. I was born the 17th of February, 1850 in Aboyne, Scotland. It's a small town along the River Dee, just at the edge of the Scottish Highlands. My middle name, Nicole, honors the heritage of my mother's family name. For 22 years, I lived in the town, and it was expected I would continue there as my father had and his father before him. But then we received news that a man in the United States, in California, was seeking workers, Scottish men, to work his lands. And we wondered to ourselves, what kind of men did they have in California, or rather a lack of men that would call for a laird to send halfway around the world to bring workers to his farm. Well, 6 of us answered the call: myself, John Rutherford, William Begg, John McLaren, Jim Milne, and John McKay. And so on the 1st of December of 1872, we left Liverpool, England for New York City. It was 3 weeks at sea, and the first week I was terribly seasick, but I finally got my sea legs and things went well after that. We landed in New York City on December 23rd, and we spent our first Christmas and did the best we could away from home and away from family. On New Year's Day, we boarded another ship to take us down to Panama. It was a very rough going because there was 100 of us crammed into steerage. But I took the occasion to break out my fiddle, go to the upper deck to play for the passengers upstairs, but better yet, to get some fresh air. Upon landing in Panama, we boarded a train and headed for the Pacific coast, 5 hours away. 3 weeks to cross an entire ocean and 5 hours to cross from the Atlantic to the Pacific. Now, I had left Scotland in the dead of winter, and the sights along the way through Panama I can never forget. In the dead of winter, the color, the fragrance, the birds, the plants, everything in full bloom and in full color. It was quite the journey along there. Arriving in Panama City, we then boarded another ship and took us up to San Diego, where we landed at the end of January. We were so happy to finally be close to home. One of our members broke out his bagpipes. You've never seen the looks on faces of people who have never heard a bagpipe and seen a good Scotsman dance. We were met by our new boss, Mr. Elwood Cooper, who had sent for us, and we left San Diego and headed to Santa Barbara. I arrived here on February 6th, and 2 days later, I was to work. Mr. Cooper's ranch covered 2,000 acres, and every inch of it was planted or growing with some crop or some experiment. There was almonds, there was walnuts, there was citrus, there was produce, and there was enough to keep a young man busy. I was either plowing or building fences, mending fences, building roads, repairing roads, planting and harvesting. In Scotland, we just had one chance at it. You planted, you nurtured, you harvested, and hoped you had enough to get you through the winter. In California, the land never slumbers. It's in bloom and producing all year long. Well, soon I found myself wanting to get more money, and the opportunity arose with the Kimberley Coal Company, run by Captain Martin Kimberley and John Stearns, the man who built our wharf. Now, you may wonder about that because there's not much coal in Santa Barbara, but this coal was to be found up in Alaska, a small island in the Aleutians, and so that's where I went, again accompanied by two of my friends, Mr. Rutherford and Mr. Begg. Well, we had been told that an able-bodied man could gather 3 tons of coal a day by hand with no problem. Of course, upon arrival, that was not what we found. It was very difficult, but we built a railroad, we built a wharf, and we did mining for nearly a year. I finally came back to Santa Barbara in 1878 and went to work for Mr. Sherman P. Stowe on his property. Now, all this time I was a bachelor, but that was about to change with the arrival of the Stronach family down in Carpinteria. It wasn't so much the Stronach family, it was their beautiful daughter, Anne, that caught my eye and my heart. Turns out she was from Banffshire, just 60 miles from where I grew up. 60 miles apart, but it took 3,000 miles to bring us together.
February 11, 1881. Dear friends and family, I am now settled in my new country, and I know we shall never meet again in this world, but I am sure that we will be together again on the other side someday, but not too soon, I hope. My family and I are now settled in California, in a city named Santa Barbara, on the west coast of the country, about as far from Scotland as one can get. But Scotland and you all will always be close to my heart. I promise to write to you, and I look forward to receiving letters from my old home place. I'm sure you have noticed that I am writing this letter on my birthday. I will try to do this every year, time permitting, but I cannot promise. Yours forever, Annie. February 11, 1884. Dear friends and family, I am sorry that I have not written sooner, but the days and the years have passed.